Hello, and welcome to the PaynePoints of Interest podcast. We want to tell the stories of people, their businesses, and the journey that they are on. Our purpose is to gather a new perspective on starting, growing, maturing, and maintaining businesses of all sizes. So grab that cup of coffee, sit back, and join us as we start this conversation. Hey guys, welcome back for another episode. I'm your host, Sarah Harbuck, and filling in today is my husband, Ben Harbuck, for Kristen Ellis. She's still out on maternity leave. And our guests today, plural, are Danica Cruz and Charles Collins of Danica VC Media. Thanks, guys, for taking time out of your schedule to be with us today.
Yeah, we're really excited to discuss things with you. Thanks for inviting us on.
Yeah. Totally. So I wanted you guys to kind of give a little bit of some background info on yourselves and tell everybody, kind of who you are and kind of how you guys got your start.
Sure. Well, I'll do the sort of nutshell in here a little bit. Okay. Danica VC Media, we're a creative marketing company. Started a couple of years ago. We do have two offices. There's one in Frederick, Maryland. Which is an hour outside of DC, and then the other one is here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where we currently are. And yeah, I think Charles could step in and fill a bit of the story there.
Take it away, Charles.
Well, Danica started a business in jewelry in college. She's very much creative at heart. And then doing that, she then went through all the marketing steps of creating a website, how to take photographs, how to copyright, stuff like that. And then we're high school sweethearts. So
Aww.
We met at 16. Yeah. And she hasn't killed me yet 12 years later, so I'm doing something okay. I'm not going to say right, but okay.
That sounds great.
So we did the long distance thing. I went to college in the UK, and then we moved to the south of France for 6 years after college. So that was a fun experience.
Oh,
my dad's always pushed me.
Jealous.
Yeah, it's a beautiful part of the world, but there's so many things to see, everywhere. We're big fans of travel, so there's good and bad about everything. We certainly miss, some French food and some French wine, but now being in Tennessee, we're having some amazing barbecue and stuff like that. So there's the pro and con.
Trying to get into whiskey, that is a journey for us.
Yeah, Tennessee, there you go. You're right in the heart of it.
Exactly. And, the business that we sort of fell into it, right? So about 2 years ago, we came back to the States. We relocated after, I want to say, like a life-shifting moment in our lives. So we came back to the States, basically having nothing after having been in France and living this crazy life for a couple of years. And I started the business kind of by accident, I saw a need, or maybe not a need, but I was thinking about doing graphic design and calligraphy for people because I was on Instagram all the time thinking that's what people wanted. And then when I went out and did networking events just to start and get out there and build my professional network, of which I had none, I started seeing people wanting more advice from me on social media and on marketing because you can't help yourself when you're nerdy about something. That would come out a lot. And then I sort of found out that people wanted that from me. And when I transitioned into that, people wanted more and more. So it grew to the point where Charles had to come in to help with operations because as a creative, that is really not my strong suit. And from there, we've grown to be able to have two offices in two cities. It's a fact that I'm immensely proud of.
Yeah, that's impressive to have two locations after 2 years of business. I mean,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive for any company, really, but for one that's so new. So you spent a lot of time on social media before you started this business, as you said, kind of, doing creative endeavors, and then saw that there was kind of a need, and people kept asking you about social media, which is, I think one of the number one questions for a lot of businesses is like, what do I do? How do I do this? Because there's just so many platforms and so many avenues in which they can kind of travel down. What is something that you tell people when they ask, like, hey, I'm just getting started in social media. I don't know a lot about it. you give them like a, your go-to tip to how to get them started, what would you say?
That's a great question. And what I always sort of respond to that is, what is your ambition? If you're going to put the time in, then you want to be, putting content out on all platforms. They all have a benefit most of the time. If you're strictly business to business, maybe don't spend as much time on Snapchat, but, you have to match, the energy that you're putting into what your ambition is. So if you're prepared to put the time in, then you got to go for all of the platforms and just spend time learning and do it. Don't overthink it.
Yeah. I think people get overwhelmed with how many there are, and maybe picking one or two that really fit their business model or the audience that they're trying to reach, and kind of expend their energy there. Maybe that's a bad advice, but I'm thinking about people who are my age and older who didn't grow up with social media. We've had to learn it as we've gotten, older. It's a little overwhelming sometimes because, you just went down to the local newspaper or the local TV office and I'm going to buy some advertising time, or I want to buy this ad space. Now that's not really applicable for a lot of businesses, and they've got to learn social media. So yeah, that's keeping it, in their business vibe and, as easy and simple as possible sounds great.
Now, one of the questions I had, Danica or Charles, is you say, I think we discussed this at the little shindig we were at in New York for Empathy Wines, but you have right there up front creative marketing agency. To a lot of people, like especially a small business person like myself, I didn't go to college. I don't have any formal training. And so when I read creative marketing agency, I don't know what they do. So do you guys run into that a lot? Or what would you say a creative marketing agency is?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that is a great question. It is something that we're evolving the messaging as we go, but we use creative marketing usually because we are thinking way outside the box. And I know that people say that, but we've encountered a lot of people who think marketing should only be a turnkey operation. You put X amount of money into something and then you get X amount back. We're actually looking to grow you using the attention that's out there. And a lot of the times that'll involve things that aren't turnkey. They involve a lot of reflection on what the brand actually is, how the people perceive them. A lot of people don't have self-awareness on how their customers perceive them. They don't capitalize on things like that. So, when we say creative, I think that, okay, it sounds a bit like, oh, you make things pretty or you make things unusual or something like that. But, our end goal is growth. It's just the way that we go about it isn't laced with jargon, I suppose.
Okay. So you would say then that you're trying to creatively help people market rather than just like, well, you can put so much, we can take some pretty pictures and put them in the newspaper. I realize again, I'm aging myself there, or whatnot. You're saying we're going to take a creative approach to marketing, and we're going to first figure out how your customers perceive you and go from there.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of encapsulating that. The one thing that I love when we do what we do is when we, sit down for a discovery session with someone and we have the conversation. We think it's going to be 30 minutes max. It ends up being 2+ hours because they keep telling us, I didn't know that. I didn't see it that way. I didn't realize that's how people could be looking at me. They light up and they see this new avenue. And for me, that's one of the most rewarding things, right? Is to see them light up with this realization that they don't have to fit neatly into this bucket. They can actually fit a space in the content world, in the universe that is completely new and not like boxed in. So when that happens, you can sense an energetic unlock that we've helped facilitate. And that's crazy. I love that part of it.
Yeah, I'm sure that interaction and kind of having that light bulb moment with people and they go, oh, you said something to them, you've given them some direction, and I never thought of it that way before. I think that's, anytime I have that experience with someone, it's always very and rewarding, and you're just like, okay, cool, I helped them in some, even if it's a small way, yay, like that's great. Or vice versa, when I've had that happen and someone's told me something and like, wow, I have never thought of it that way before. With social media marketing, it's ever changing. It's just constantly revolving door, it seems like, of, new and better ways to do things. Do you guys feel like you're constantly having to educate yourselves in this field and constantly stay up to date with all the algorithms and different things people have to do in order to gain that attention?
Yes. 2020 has been a crazy year between everything that's been going on, with the Black Lives Matter movement, COVID, communicating to clients and, to their customers what's going on, what they're up to, and then Instagram bringing out Reels over the past week.
Yes.
There's always something new, but I sort of love that challenge. And, some clients are very rigid. They don't want to delve into TikTok, even though we think there's a lot of advantage for them. And they only want to do sales pitches. So we can't experiment for them. But for other clients, they're just like, we trust you. You do what you want to do. And obviously for our own brand, we can try and play. And it's just part of that experimentation. And I don't think that there's a wrong answer. I don't think you can do anything wrong. As long as you're coming in with good intent, what can possibly happen? You find out, okay, that really doesn't work. I need to post hashtags, or that's too many hashtags, whatever. Just it's part of that experiment process. It's almost like being a scientist.
Yeah, the experimentation process, I think people don't want to deal with. And that's sort of a barrier that we have to tell people to overcome, that there is a level of experimentation, trial and error when we're trying this. Gone are the days where AdWords was the only thing that people had. We were a little spoiled back then, where you could just pay this much money for a keyword and then you get something back. But now everything's more organic. Everything, like the creative, plays a much bigger part. And so with that in mind, thinking outside of the box, thinking creatively is mega important. And so when people talk to us, the common feedback that we get is, you didn't approach this the way the other agencies I called did. And that's why I'm liking what you're saying.
Yeah, okay. Setting yourself apart with something slightly different.
How much it sounds very, hearing both of you answer the question, it sounds like even your business is evolving in the fact that, as Charles said, you're being very present in the moment today. You mentioned Reels coming out last week. How much planning went into starting the business in general as compared to where you are today?
To be honest, not loads. I kind of shot from the hip on that one because at the time that I started, I felt like I had nothing to lose. We had very little, and I was building from basically a very basic rock bottom foundation. And
I think the first website said you were calligraphy.
Yeah, I think I mentioned that. Yeah.
Invitations. So that's how much it's evolved.
Yeah, it started out as, it was originally called Danica VC Design because I thought people wanted that from me. I thought that they wanted, the pretty graphics and the calligraphy. But again, as things have progressed, I found out that the need in the market was really more in the different way that we both think in the world. Living in all the different places we had, I'm an Air Force brat. I wasn't born in the U.S. I was born in the Philippines. I've been a child of two cultures my whole life. Charles is very much the same. We lived abroad for 6 years plus, having a long distance relationship for 4 years. Like, I feel like all of these collective experiences, and yeah, I had formal training in marketing. That was my degree in school. But I honestly think that drawing from all these different experiences has helped me more. These cross-cultural communications, being in uncomfortable situations constantly. I think that is what makes us unique and different. You can't say that for every person, 4-year long distance relationship across countries and all these different international experiences, etc.
Right. Well, I think too, your willingness to be flexible there in the beginning and seeing that, okay, calligraphy wasn't the thing people were really attaching themselves to, but they were really seeking me out for this service over here, and you pivoting to that, going in that direction. A lot of people would stubbornly kind of, well, this is what I wanted to do, and I'm going to keep doing it, to their own detriment to some extent, whenever you see that there's this other want and need in the community that you're trying to serve. So I think that's kudos to you guys for even kind of changing and adapting that way. you know, a lot of people wouldn't do that, and we've seen businesses fail because of that. So
interesting.
The next question that comes to my mind for you guys is, again, how when the other thing that I notice when I immediately like jump on your website, or I get on Instagram or some form of social media, my response coming from East Texas, from a very small, I've built up a coffee shop here. I've built up a tattoo shop here. I helped my brother build up a furniture consignment shop. But I look at what y'all are doing and I think to myself, wow, they're too big for me. I couldn't afford them. Do you guys run into that?
I would say the main issue we have with pricing is that people don't see the value of social media. You know, they view it on the basis that, well, I have a Facebook account, therefore I know how to run it, or my niece has a Facebook account, I'll get them to run it.
Yeah.
So that is the thing I think we come across the most. I mean, often we found actually we're a lot cheaper than our competition, and we have raised our rates over the past couple of years. So what we were taking on at the beginning was a crazy amount of work when you look back at it, with no money at all. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's the main issue, is that people just don't necessarily see the value in what we're providing.
And from my perspective, I can completely understand that. I think one of the things that I'm always concerned about, though, is like, do you think, in other words, I know I need to hire you guys, right? I just don't know from looking at your social if I can afford you or not. And life is so busy that sometimes I don't take the time to do that. And I wonder if other people feel the same way, or if you guys run into a similar thought process where it's not that it is that people, I would agree with you, Charles, that people don't value it highly enough. They think they can do it because everyone has it. But again, for instance, like me, I would be worried like, well, I only have a $2,000 profit this month at one of my businesses. Am I able to hire Danica and Charles yet?
That's an interesting point. We'll certainly have to look and maybe put some social media posts and points out there saying, hey, like, concerned about price, like, don't worry about it, like, let's discuss. I hadn't seen it from that perspective.
Well, yeah, agreed, because we try to make things approachable, but this is the first time we're getting the feedback that, we might be too big, right? We might appear too big. And usually we try to work with people to, and sometimes there are cases where they want a lot for basically nothing, which, we can't really do.
Of course.
But in the cases where it's like, in the case where it's like, I'm not sure if they're going to be expensive or not. Like, and I know that first step, is going to be maybe a little bit hesitant or tense. Like, we want to sort of put out there that we are approachable. Like, we're willing to hear, hey, what is your budget? Because we could do X amount for that. And does that work for you? And here are the benefits. And we would go through the whole process, but actually making that more prominent on our messaging, I think we probably have to do. Again, like evolving, right? Like we've been saying, always open to how we're being perceived by potential customers.
Well, in that vein, I was looking at your website last week and then this morning, and it's very impressive. It's very beautifully done. It's very simple. It's very appealing to the eye, especially for me. I like simplicity. I don't like a lot of stuff that my eye has to like jump around the screen and look at. And so I very much appreciate that. I do think that you guys have cultivated your brand to look high end, but do you offer different levels of service? Say somebody comes to you and they've got most of their social media down, but they might need help with this one small area. Or do you find yourself doing more consulting than actually doing the work? Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. So we do have a mix in that regard. For several clients, we do actually do kind of like I know I didn't say turnkey was the thing to do, but they actually hand off their social media to us. Yes. And we're in constant communication about, the progress and how it's going. Then there are other clients who, I'm thinking here.
We'll do like a one-off consulting.
Yes,
we've done everything from a 1-hour consulting session through to, a pretty hardcore deck in terms of, where your brand is, where you want to go, and, give you a game plan, a roadmap as to how to get there.
Yeah, so there's two, I guess, tiers: people that don't want to do the work and want to hand off to us, and then the other tier where, they're willing to do the work, or they're willing to have a team do the work, but they need to know a direction. Gotcha. And so we've got both.
I feel like offering several levels of service will definitely make it seem a lot more affordable if people look at you guys and go, wow, they seem so fancy, Well,
and I think I don't even, I'm recognizing now that it sounded like a criticism, but it wasn't. I think I've admired what you guys have done ever since I met you, and I've been paying attention, and I've noticed how much you've followed, I guess, the core principles of what Gary Vee is always talking about with empathy and with compassion, but also going forward with positivity and optimism. And I think even some of what I said is probably, if we were to have a discovery session about, my business, probably what I said applies to me. I think my customers at the tattoo shop feel like tattoo artists in general are very unapproachable, and we try to make a difference in that on social, but we've been discussing for the past few weeks how really, I guess, reticent we are, that we've been, almost quiet on the social media front from a tattoo shop perspective. And so I think that's just it's almost a constant conversation in my mind, of how to get kicked off of my clients feel like they can't approach me, and yet I struggle to approach others because I know I need help solving the problem.
Yeah, no, I certainly didn't take it as a criticism. And it's one of those points of you always have to be, reflecting and like adapting and making subtle changes, either to your business model, which we went from graphic design, calligraphy to, a marketing agency, or is it just a simple little wording on your website that you can adjust to pull more people in? And nothing's ever perfect. At some point you have to pull the trigger and jump and just, roll with it. Mm-hmm. But, that being said, you always should be looking to adjust and give what people are looking for.
Uh-huh. I think the big challenge for a company like yours is, you're dealing with a lot of different people in different age brackets having businesses. And so you have the older generation that, think of ad agencies as like Mad Men, it's it's very corporate sort of thing. You go down and you have these meetings in a boardroom, and then you have the Gen Z millennial generations that are younger and they've grown up with social media and they've grown up in this technological age. And so trying to, I'm guessing every new client having to fit the smallest, formula that you can, the base formula that you use to build off of. I assume that there's got to be something, and trying to adapt that for each individual client is a real challenge because, all these different generational groups and what they're used to, do you find that you guys have to kind of tailor every single client to a certain action steps based on their business and their experience, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, a lot of what we do is perception management, right?
Sure.
Like each generation has their own perception on what makes their marketing campaigns legitimization factors, right? So for a Gen Z, that'd be someone more literate with Instagram, literate with TikTok, whereas maybe a baby boomer client will see that and dismiss it as frivolous, right? And so we have to take the wisdom from the baby boomer generation or Gen X and be like, hey, actually, they have some good points here that you could apply to what you're doing. And then for Gen Z backwards, so telling the baby boomers and Gen Xers, hey, like, people do care about this. A lot of the feedback that we get from the older age groups is like, why do people care about this? Like, why do people want to hear from me about this? Right. Like, they can't, and I'm not saying it's a disadvantage that they can't see it, but I think that maybe there's a fear of being judged negatively or something like that, but you sort of reflect their special talents back at them. And it's like, again, there's that light bulb moment that they never saw it that way, that their content could be like this. And after 3 or so months or 3 to 6 months of doing it this way for them, they really see it. Yeah. They really see the benefit. And so, yeah, like we have a process for every client. It is pretty tailored right now. I struggle to think of a formula that we have, but we do have similar processes for each person, and a lot of it involves like addressing those maybe misconceptions that they might have that are blocking them from making a marketing campaign that will really take off.
I mean, some people just have to get out of their own way, and if they're hiring you for this expertise and you're giving them this advice and they're like, well, I don't see the benefit of that. Well, I mean, okay, but just trust that you're hiring these professionals on, for a reason, and that they're going to try to do their best by you and guide you in the I've been guilty of that. When TikTok became a thing, I was like, what is that? What is the purpose of that? Why do I need to be on TikTok? And I'm not that old. I'm older, definitely, but I'm not that old. And it was just kind of like, okay, Sarah, let's see here what you might benefit from by being on this particular platform. And speaking of which, what has been the most helpful tool for you guys in running your business? Is there a specific social media platform that you enjoy, or is there something completely different that has really put you guys, out there?
I personally love Twitter. I spend the majority of my day probably on Twitter.
Okay.
Just one, it helps me stay on top of what's going on in the world. From news through to sports and everything else, and just seeing what real people's reactions are is great. It's okay to headline read on the news websites when you can actually get what people are feeling and saying. I found that really helpful, and then it really translates into what we can do a post about a client if it's relevant, sort of on the spot.
So keeping up with current events helps you serve your clients better, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Twitter's not just for the keeping up with current events, though. We have had business opportunities and employment opportunities come from it. So employment meaning employees that we found through Twitter. And then Charles has talked to some major people. I think you talked to
different people. Everyone's accessible on Twitter, which is why I really like.
Yeah, that was the point.
In terms of the business results, I'd say probably Instagram is what really drives inquiries into the business.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you find people going through social media more than, say, your website?
Networking events are probably a big portion of that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which have taken a downturn in COVID. I don't think they're going to be allowed for a while yet. But I think that the social media activity is a bit more than the website. The website is the landing page people go to if they want to know more, about what we do.
Right. But general information. So, yeah.
Yes. But the social's where everyone meets us for the first time,
Gotcha.
With our online networking. Yeah.
Right.
Hi, podcaster, producer, Megan here. I've got a question as the lone Generation Z in the room. What I have noticed in growing up in the age of social media, and I want to see if you guys have noticed this as well, is, I have a lot of my own friends who are starting YouTube channels or small businesses, and they're like, how do I get people to engage with me? And I always tell them it's authenticity. It's why you see people like Gary Vaynerchuk or the K-pop group BTS succeeding is because they are authentic. They are themselves. Is that something that you've noticed you've had to encourage clients to do, is be more authentic and be more themselves?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a reason reality TV does well, right? People like to see the real side of people, right? And we've had case studies in our sample size of clients where one client will do the personal side, and it doesn't have anything to do with their industry, but they're showing hey, this is what I do when I'm not this person, when I'm not this professional person. And those lead to sales. Those lead to much more engagement, much more following than any kind of sales pitch ever does. And so trying to tell that to some clients can be a bit difficult because they don't see the road, I suppose.
Yeah, I think there was a study done a couple of years ago. People are more likely to vote for president with the person who they're most likely to go for a beer with. If they're going to choose the president based on who they want to go for a beer with, you can, safely assume they're going to choose their dentist or insurance or whatever,
right,
based on,
on vibes,
likability.
Exactly. Especially when there's so much choice now, I feel we're millennials, right? So we've been exposed to this too, but I feel like older generations didn't have as much choice. They had X amount of channels and X amount of people to buy shirts from. Our choices now are infinite, right? And so you're going to choose a brand, any kind of service based on if you like the person and trust the person that is going to be doing this product or service for you. I do that with everything, my makeup, my insurance, agent, everything. Likability is super, super important.
But to build off that, I feel like that's one of the issues that comes up is there's so much now that I'll do a search on Instagram, or I'll do a search on Twitter, or I'll do a search on Google, and I'll looking for a service or a product or something like that, and I only seem to come across things in other states. So it almost feels like there's so much now that your brand is invisible locally. How would you guys respond to that?
I mean, yeah, I think it's true, but it also allows you to build a bigger business at the same time. So like there's pros and cons with it. You can build a much bigger footprint easier, but it is also much harder to be seen locally as well. So you're trying to straddle that difference.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys notice, and during this, really strange time in history that we were, experiencing in 2020, that people have shifted their focuses when it comes to, say, running their businesses? Now, there for a while, everybody was shut down. Brick and mortar locations were not an option. Everybody had to either shop online or do curbside or delivery. Did you guys have to change your advice to clients? And if so, what were some of the things that you advised them on to help them kind of make it through this very odd time in history?
But we were pretty lucky actually in that respect. So all of our clients actually, stayed the same or did better through COVID. I mean, it was a very interesting scenario. We had one of our clients is an art supply company, which absolutely exploded.
Sure.
To the tune of like 5,000% increase in sales,
Holy.
Versus the previous year.
Yeah.
So then you have all sorts of supply chain issues and everything else. So trying to communicate, it was just an ongoing communication. Okay, this is coming in stock. This is now out of stock. Things were going off the shelves way faster than what they could get the inventory in, but obviously their supply chain had issues with making of thick crafts.
Right.
So that was interesting. So it basically became very much a messaging of, just communicating what's going on at the companies, and we did that for a month or maybe 2 months, just about for all of our clients.
Yeah, and finding that those who had already been utilizing social media and maximizing on it as much as they could probably didn't take as big of a hit. But did you notice an influx of inquiries like, okay, I've got to switch my business up here, do something different if I'm gonna have to sell online or provide this service now or what have you? Did you guys notice that at all, or it's pretty steady, slow and steady?
Yeah, we did see a little bit of an increase in people who were like, well, my old methods are not working. How do I, set up a website, things like that, which is, another service that we do offer. Now, the flip side to that was people were very concerned about spending money as well. So it was balancing shifting of the business. It's one thing to say, let's shift the business. It's another thing to actually have the finances to be able to do so.
Yeah.
One major shift in content production, though, that has been a positive for a lot of people across the board is that a lot of people that we talked to were really obsessed with production quality, right? Like it had to be the best camera and the best sound system and the best blah, blah, blah. But now, I mean, when news anchors themselves are in their own living rooms, you don't have to think about that as much. So we found that a lot of people are loosening on their idea of what good production quality is. So they have the nice background in their home and they're wearing something okay, but they're not overthinking it as much. So that was a really nice thing to see.
Well, I think also too that sort of shifts back to the authenticity of things. It just looks real. Like, okay, we're all experiencing this issue, and no, nobody's in a grand studio with fancy cameras, and I think it just reflects the time, but also it just kind of makes you more relatable to what everybody else is having to go through if you're also sitting in your living room using your cell phone camera to shoot whatever it is you're shooting. So I feel like that actually isn't a negative, it's a plus, for a lot of people, although they may see it like, oh, I need this really fancy camera, or I need this fancy microphone. Nobody has that at home. So I think we're all in the same boat there, and I feel like that should be a comfort to people. Like, okay, well, the whole world is changing right now, and the shape of everything is just it's rapidly every day we wake up to something new, and I think that that should be the least of our worries. Let's get the message out there. If it's more of a guerrilla war, style sort of film and video quality, then that's the style it's going to be for 2020. So,
right.
Exactly.
Embrace it. Yeah, embrace it while it's here. It may not be forever, because like for the longest time, it felt like so many things had to be just so refined and so sophisticated and very almost stiff and formal in a way. And I feel like we're kind of reverting back a little bit more towards, what would the word be? More of a free flow, less rigid, a little more relaxed, hey, this works, even though it's not technically textbook, perfect. Let's do that instead.
Yeah. Now you guys have, go ahead.
I was going to say, when you tune into ESPN and you see the commentators, with the wired headphones going into their computer, and then it breaks up a little bit because their internet speed slows and then goes all blocky, that makes it way more acceptable for everyone else. If it's good enough for ESPN, it's good enough for you to put out a video on your Instagram page.
Exactly.
And building on that, I was going to ask, you guys produce a lot of content for Danica VC Media. How has it changed at all in the last few months as far as how many posts you make per day, or how many platforms you're posting on with all the changes in the world?
It's changed a little bit. I mean, so, for a while we had our vlog going on, our weekly vlog. So we were filming out and about and networking events and stuff like that. Well, filming in your house gets relatively boring when we're doing the same thing. So we've stopped our daily vlog or a weekly vlog.
Yeah.
For a little while, just because it's all the same and monotonous.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, we moved to a new city, so we thought there would be opportunity to do more vlog stuff, but that obviously stopped. In terms of our content mix, I think that it's, I guess, made us a little more thoughtful as to what can we produce in our office that would still be on message and that would captivate people the same way we had been with other content. And I think we're doing a pretty good job. I think we want to do a bit more video of the two of us, but we've had like a barrage of massive projects the past 2 months, so we haven't been able to get to it. But that's a good thing to have, so I'm not complaining too much.
Absolutely.
That your response kind of triggered a question in me. Video and then picture, and that seems to be the big debate sometimes. Like, what's going to hit better, pictures or video? And it seems like videos seem to be where it is these days. But what is y'all's professional, media and marketing opinion on something like that? Does it depend on the platform and your audience, or is there definitely a front runner in which type of media you're going to use?
We try to do a mix of both. With video, we found that it does, people watch it probably less and you get more likes on a picture, but you definitely build up a stronger, more engaged, more committed audience through a video, because they've taken that time to get to know you, and you're rewarding them with something solid. So finding that balance of, getting the likes and getting the reach on pictures versus really catering to your key demographic, your key customers with the video.
So it's better to mix it up and do both so that you can capitalize on both ends of that spectrum. I think that's the big issue for a lot of people is being able to diversify enough, or because running media for any business is a full-time job, and if you're already the boss and you're the sole employee, and then it's like, I got to do social media on top of that, so I struggled with that in the past, doing a mixture of things, and I would be too rigid sometimes in the way I would make posts, and I'm learning now that I can do this for a while, but if it's not really hitting, okay, throw it in the trash. Let's start over. Let's refine and do more. And we found that like you've said, doing a mix of both video and still images is going to give you a wider audience and build a bigger audience in the long run. I mean, none of this is a sprint. It's a marathon, right? So it's a constant journey of figuring out what works, and what worked last month may not work next month. And you guys have chosen a business that's so, it's moving and changing. And I mean, I admire you guys for ever, doing something like that. 'Cause it's just it's such an overwhelming thing for most people when running their business. And so for you guys to do this for so many businesses, how do you guys keep track of all of that? Do you have do you utilize some sort of a database system that you kind of, okay, this client is over here on this particular track and they're doing this? Because it looks like based on your website, you have a small team of people. So I'm assuming you guys share the workload. Give us like a snapshot into y'all's office life.
Sure. So I'll be honest, we keep things pretty simple around here. A lot of the, I guess, top-down work, it stays with me and Charles, right? So we're making the bulk of the decisions, etc.
Sure.
But
that's something we need to work on.
Yes,
actually, we've been having that discussion over the past week of, sort of hiring and getting better at delegating work and passing off responsibilities. So that is something we are consciously aware of. We need to improve
because you need that to scale, right? And so. Our entire system, it's not, we don't use a project management system. We use Google and we use Charles for the time being.
He's a walking database.
Right now he really is. Like
I have a lot of lists and I'm very pro pen and paper.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of different to-do lists and stuff like that. And we have a whiteboard that keeps track of a lot of stuff as well.
Yeah. And I tried to do a project management system, and it's another example of there's no right way, one right way to do anything, right? And so because I tend to be the kind of person who is time blind, I don't exactly know how long things take. I don't exactly know what sequence to do things in that would best leverage my time. Charles is naturally gifted at that. And so we're able to combine our strengths to create a management system, that is, half analog, half electronic, but we created it that works for us. And I did try Monday.com. I did try Asana and different things, but I found that going analog just helped me keep things and help me remember them better. And having Charles there as operations also helped. So that's sort of how we handle things. I don't know if Charles wanted to add anything else.
I just get such a kick out of manually scratching something off that to-do list.
It's very satisfying.
You just can't beat that feeling for me. I love that paper. Ticking a box on Google or Monday.com or whatever, it's okay, but it does not have that same effect. It doesn't have that same, wow, look how much I accomplished today.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. It's so fascinating that y'all went there because one of the things that came up during COVID, during this new kind of era we're living in is we rented out a spot here at the tattoo shop in one of the other rooms to a programming company to kind of help offset some of what was going on. And it was it's actually the guys who are, essentially allowing us to do this podcast, PaynePoints. But one of the reasons that I found that so fascinating was because I could actually help them, but I can only help them draw analogies. In other words, they're only computer literate, and I am almost computer illiterate. but I can listen to their programming problems and draw pictures that help them think about the problem differently. So it seems like there's a really cool opportunity that we're all experiencing where analog and digital are finding ways to help each other. Mm-hmm. I guess is a really Texan way to say it.
Well, I think that
as well.
I think that they're necessary to do both. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I cut you off.
No, you're good. No, but I love that just from someone coming in from the outside, giving that fresh perspective. You don't have to be an expert. Sometimes just it's better if they don't know anything about the subject because they're coming in from such a different angle. And it sounds like that's what you're coming in and helping them with, which is awesome. And that's what we see with our company when we go into a business because we don't know necessarily how to run, a doctor's office. But so why are you doing like that? When you actually question that because it doesn't make sense, you can really get some real leverage out of it.
Yeah, a lot of people suffer from curse of knowledge where, they think that what their knowledge is completely everybody knows it and they talk like that to other people. But it's actually most people don't know what you're talking about. You have to sort of simplify it to be able to sell.
Exactly. And I find that they're, on the other hand, these guys are able to help me organize and find technology that helps me with the tattoo shop. But because again, I'm all over the place. You know, I'll be painting a skateboard one day, or trying to learn how to bunny hop over a trailer. You know, like on a bicycle. You know,
Nice.
like I'm just completely all over the place, and that bleeds into my business. But it can help creatively when your business is so structured to have someone like me come in. But it can also help me have someone structured come in and go, okay, we're from the outside. Why are you booking clients this way? Why don't you book them this other way? And I'm like, wow, I never thought of that.
Yep.
To go back to an earlier point that you made, Charles, we're at the tattoo shop. We're also seeing a giant growth in business, which is very, very strange because we can't take walk-ins anymore. We have to, of course, like a doctor's office, we have to go through this long verification to even allow someone to come and get a tattoo. We can only have so many people per square foot in the building. There's just this all these changes, and yet our business is booming, which it doesn't make any sense. It's very hard to like mentally figure out how that's happening. And so I wonder, is this, from y'all's experience and expertise, would this be the time to try and scale even though times are so uncertain?
Yeah, I mean, I think, so many businesses and things change, new opportunities arise when we're in a period of flux. And most people, or a lot of people, have the time. So if you are out of work, or, your sales have dried up, build for the future now, because when things get busy again, you're not going to have the time to do it. Just lay the groundwork now when you can.
Mm-hmm. So in that vein, if I were to say, let's say after this podcast, maybe later this week or next week, what would I need to do to prepare to hire you guys, or to go into what did you call it? A discovery session with y'all next week?
That's a good question.
It would be just to hit us up. So, we have several contact avenues. You could do it through social DM, or you could email us. Our email is hello@danicavcmedia.com.
Mm-hmm.
But, once that initial contact is made and there's an intent to just have a talk with us, you could mention that you want a discovery session just to see how we could work together. That might sound a little vague, but that's actually all we need to get started. And, we'll have a look at your company, any relevant links that you might have. We don't require much to get started, really.
No, and we just love meeting people.
Yeah.
So even if, we've got a meeting next week with someone who we're 99.5% sure we're never going to get any business from that direction. That's not the point. We just love meeting people and having a new discussion. And it gives us a chance also to just flex our muscle a little bit and practice it.
Yes.
Like looking for creative directions and what you could do and creative ideas. I do love that side of it.
I do enjoy being paid to get nerdy. And even if we're not paid, sometimes it's okay too. It's just, I really feel confident that we found something that we sink our teeth in and we feel gratified to do every day. And I think that that's a very lucky thing to have. That's what we've been striving for. Gary Vee always says, happiness is the real success here. And so that's what we're constantly trying to strive for, especially because when we were living in the south of France, we came from a world that was very materialistic. And so to switch over from that is of immense importance to us. And so even if you're not sure if we'll be the right fit for you, or if you're not sure if we're in your affordability bracket, just talk to us anyway. We're not going to make fun of you if you can't afford us. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Your authenticity is shining through. I think it's just such a fascinating thing that my mind goes there. My mind jumps to, well, what do I need to get ready in order to contact Danica VC Media? How much money do I need to have? What questions do I need to be able to answer? And I think that stops a lot of smaller businesses from reaching out to some of these, what they see as celebrity businesses. And you guys don't look at yourself that way, and I don't look at my business that way. But that is one of the feedback that is some of the feedback that I've been hearing recently. is people saying to me at the tattoo shop, "Oh, I didn't think I had enough money," and it was like, "Well, you could have just talked to me. Like I'm just Ben, you know. Like you could have reached." And they say, "Oh, well, I don't, I want a really big tattoo," and then they tell me about it, and it turns out it's only 4 inches by 2 inches. And that's not really big in my world. Really big is like 12 hours.
A sleeve.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but it's interesting that I exhibit the same characteristics in like approaching you guys, because we had a really good conversation that night in New York, and yet it's been almost a year.
Almost. Yeah.
Yeah, it has. It blows my mind, actually.
Yeah.
No, I think it's been over a year, actually. I think it was in June.
Yeah.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it's very strange, because I remember it was just, for me, it was a 6 a.m. flight out and a 6 a.m. flight the very next day back. and I didn't have any idea where I was staying, and I think you guys were on the side of the room where I was helping one of the interns tape up a banner, or I think he was taping up some balloons. And finally, I watched him struggle for like 10 minutes, and I was like, okay, I know I'm only a Texan, but I know how to work tape.
Let me help you out, man.
So I went over there and helped him out, and he was a really nice guy. I had an enjoyable conversation with him also. So in closing, what would you guys say, or getting closer to a closing, what would you guys say is the next big thing for y'all?
Actually, this week we've got a couple of meetings about potentially opening up a new office location, so that certainly will be interesting. And we've had the discussion in the past couple of weeks. What is the next step? And we've got some cities in mind that we'd like to expand to. From exploration, we think we'll like the place, and we're not looking to be the biggest marketing company. We don't want to go and dominate New York or something like that. That's not our thing. We want to be good in, very good, and sort of dominate the smaller markets, if that makes sense. We want to be very good and strong, established in Chattanooga, as well as back up in Maryland. So that's our sort of long-term goal.
So like Joe Rogan, you're saying that you're gonna open an office in Texas.
I don't know that that's what they said.
Discussed.
Yeah, it was discussed. Yeah.
I mean, we'll welcome you. It's fine. That's cool. We'd love to have you. I think that's great that you guys want to focus on the smaller markets, because there are those big advertising and media groups for the big corporations and conglomerates, and catering to what the backbone of our economy is the small business. I think that's a good goal to have, and I'm excited to see what you guys end up doing.
And Danica, for yours, because I heard Charles's, you mentioned happiness earlier. Is that kind of your, not necessarily professional goal, but is that a big part of what you see the company doing next?
Yeah, I mean, after being in Chattanooga for 5 months now, 6 months now?
Yeah, we moved in February.
Yeah, so, and even with COVID, in my very core of my soul, right, it feels like it was the exact right thing to do that has propelled us to a better spot in the business. I think that by following our heart in such a way, which is something we've done in our whole lives, people thought we were crazy to have a long distance relationship in college across 2 countries and the Atlantic Ocean. But we did it because we thought it was right. And so in the same vein, I want to keep following that voice that's telling me, hey, this city is going to be good for what you want to do, what you want to have, the people you want to meet, how you want to expand personally as well as professionally. I mean, I am constantly stimulated by being in a new place because I get to meet the people, and the little people think the things that people think are ordinary, I just nerd out over, the certain sayings and the certain cultural affectations, they all funnel into the business, of course. But for me, for my own happiness, that is a huge part. The expansion is just me wanting to expand my mind as well.
So the professional growth and the personal growth are very tied together, which to me makes a lot of sense.
Go ahead.
I was just going to close off by saying that I came from, and not just from France, but I came from a culture where, a lot of people put importance on the achievements that you receive, the things that they could put a badge on, right? And I chased that for a while, most of my life, and it I felt empty afterwards, because you're not really choosing what you want. You're, chasing what you think people will laud you for, applaud you for. And that's a dangerous thing to do. And so by getting quiet, in my own head, trying to figure things out, and it's a process, it's still happening, but I know that is something, like the expansion into different cities, different places, and with different industries and people on the small business side, like, it's just incredibly exciting, and it has nothing to do with impressing other people.
Right, absolutely.
I think that's a great takeaway for anybody listening. I think, as I've sat here listening to you guys talk, there's this passion for what you do and this authenticity to just be real and be in the moment and to, adapt as you need to. And I think that's all great qualities and characteristics that a business should have in order to continue to move forward. And I like hearing, people say they want to achieve happiness versus some sort of monetary goal, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like when you have that as the heart of your, trajectory, it's definitely going to be a lot more successful, at least fulfilling for you personally. So it's been awesome to hear y'all's story. I wish we had a little bit longer, but we probably need to wrap it up. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you guys, your website, your social media, all that?
All right. So our website is danicavcmedia.com. That's Victor Charlie, right? For Vince Cruz. Our handles are the same. So it's at DanicaVCmedia for Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, etc. It'll be the same across all of them. We're able to grab that, which is a nice thing. I do wonder what the next generation will struggle with that, finding handles.
Right.
But and YouTube as well.
Yeah, and it's Danica, like Danica Patrick.
Yes. With
Danica.
a C, not a K.
Yes. That's exactly the comment I made when he came home and was telling me I met this couple, and I was like Danica Patrick.
Yay! I love her so much. She's helped me so much with my name.
That's awesome. Well, thanks you guys for being here and giving your unique perspective. And we'll have to have you back on, I think, and talk more in depth about some different things that we just didn't get a chance to talk to you about today.
Yeah, we'd love that, and maybe you guys can come on our podcast.
Yes, totally. That would be awesome. We need to set that up. Well, thank you guys for being here and taking time out of your schedule. It sounds like y'all are busy, so we really appreciate that you would make time for this. And we hope everybody enjoyed today's story. We want you to send us yours. If you want to be a guest on the podcast, you should contact us on our website, www.PaynePoints.com, or any of our linked social media. Thank you guys. I hope y'all have a fantastic week. And that is all for us this week.
Great.
Thanks so much.
You guys too. Have the best week.